welcome to the CuppaChino Club's social TV channel. An empowered woman is someone who knows her strengths and isn't afraid to embrace it. And so we invite you to join us as we introduce you to a community of South African businesswomen who inspire change through conversations. Don't go away, we will be right back. If you're just joining us, welcome to the show. I'm your host, Bridgetti Lim Banda. I'm a live video camera confidence coach, a talk show host, producer, and a live streaming advocate. My co-host is Viola Manual. She's an accomplished senior executive herself, and she's been nominated for multiple awards. She was the CEO of the Cape Chamber of Commerce and Industry, also the executive director of the Cape IT Initiative, a member of the Western Cape Premier's Council of Skills, just to mention a few. Viola also serves as a non-executive at the National Sea Rescue Institute and is the deputy chair of the Cape Town Stadium. She's got 2 entrepreneurial ventures, G&B Retail and Afro Wellness, but she says her most proudest achievement is being a mom to her 10-year-old son, Shay. Welcome to the show, Viola.
Thank you, Bridgetti.
And then also joining us today is Titania Fernandez. She's the director of the Global Partnerships Office at the Community Chest. Welcome to you, Titania.
Thank you. Good morning. Hello.
And then also we want to welcome Songo Didiza. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. You can help me out there. She's the founder and CEO at Green Building Design Group and also the 2019 Sub-Saharan African Energy Innovator of the Year. Wow. Welcome, Songo.
Thank you, Bridgetti. Thank you. Welcome to everyone.
So great to have you here. And then last but not least, we want to also welcome Jill Benting. She is the founder of Laureus Youth Empowerment Through Sport Pleasure. And so our conversation today is around leadership in the NPO and NGO sector. And I think it's quite an important conversation to have because
there's in business, it's a very, very lonely place sometimes. And I feel that, the whole idea behind CuppaChino Club Live and our social TV network and this channel is to start having these conversations that women can listen to and participate in through their comments. And we can then certainly make sure that they are offered some new insights and definitely get the expertise of the women around the table.
Fantastic. So I want to, before we jump into our conversation, I want to say a warm welcome to everyone. We've got an audience joining us on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Periscope, and on Twitter. So a huge big welcome to us. If you would like to participate in the conversation either live or in the comments via the replay, please feel free to do so. And also tell us where you are watching us from. It's always great to know where our audience is connecting with us. So we're going to jump right into the conversation. And our first question is, what was your first thoughts around working with an NPO or for an NPO or an NGO? Titania, shall we jump off with you?
Sure. For me, I knew at a very early age that I would forge a career spanning all aspects of business, philanthropy, sustainable and ethical partnerships. My career started off in around 1993 after I'd done my studies, and I worked in both education and human rights. Back then, we realized that our country needed a different type of model that would be working towards an inclusive society where there would be a market for everybody, an inclusive market that would include a market for women, for people with disabilities, for the marginalized, for those who are under-resourced. And I knew then that that is where I would want to learn and make the difference.
Fantastic. Shall we ask Songo, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have to say, I have to borrow Tatiana's words as well, in terms of my reasons for getting into this industry. Firstly, getting into sustainability in the green sector, which at the time was something that very few people wanted to listen to, given the fact that at the time, which is about 10 to 12 years ago, South Africa had cheap electricity. So the model thinking for going to the green economy wasn't as strong as it probably is now. But obviously, having gotten the T-shirt and having gotten the stripes on the T-shirt, now we can look back and say, well, that was a good move. But going, particularly using the social entrepreneurship route, the reason behind was because I understood early on that I had to build trust in the public and private and various verticals within the industry. So following the social entrepreneurship model I found was actually the model that worked for us.
Fantastic. Jill, shall we ask you what your thoughts are on that?
Yes, so unfortunately for me, I can't speak on the years of experience as all of the previous ladies, but kudos to you. I will get there one day. I work with a foundation, a sport foundation that actually works with NGOs. So the organization itself is an NPO, but we source funding from corporates, and then we fund NGOs working in previously disadvantaged communities using the tool of sport to tackle certain ills. So for me, just as Titania mentioned, also from a young age, I knew that working and improving other people's lives was where my passion is. And that's why I got into the business. I'm in a fortunate position to also know that sport has the power to actually change your life and, divert you from ill decisions that you can make, especially in these communities that we are working in. And working at the grassroots level has always been one of my passions. So yeah, that's why I found myself within the NGO sector.
I think I'd like to, we'd like to have you back on the show again and delve a little bit deeper into that, because I think in our society, sports and how we can use that to better our youth and opportunities for youth and reaching them on levels that sometimes isn't possible is a great topic to delve into.
Exactly.
At another time. Yeah,
I would love to. Thank you.
Fantastic. So what are some of the challenges? And let's get real here. Let's not fluff around. What are some of the real challenges that you've experienced? Titania, shall we jump off with you?
Sure. I think just to create an enabling environment is a huge challenge to the country as well. I think that there is a space for philanthropic organizations, for NGOs, NPOs, because this is the space where governments are not always equipped to go, given various policies, and where sometimes organizations or corporations won't go. So there's a definite need for NGOs to collaborate in this type of sector. That said, we hear that there is funding crisis, there's the economy that is going all over the place, there are various financial attributes that people are struggling with. But for me, there's been billions pumped into our sector as well, so I'm not sure there is a complete lack of funding. I think more so it is a skill set, access also to funding. And with that is, like I say, it's a skill set. It is a leadership dynamic that needs to be developed, a need for succession plan, a need for access for young people. And I think also the way the development sector is constructed, I think our sector employs more than the mining sector in the country. And the way that our education model works as well is that people are not necessarily geared to come and work in our sector. And yet we need the collaboration between business skills and social skills as well. So I think to be incentivized to come and work in the social sector is something that we should look at. For instance, in the US or countries abroad, for instance, when you volunteer for X amount of years, I don't know if it's 5 or 10 years, you actually get your student loan pardoned. I think that's a great incentive.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Absolutely easier. Songo, how about you? What are the challenges?
I think Viola's been exposed to some of these, and I think she'll be able to agree with me here. Having worked together in the previous NPO together, when I was in the Western Cape, I think for me personally, the biggest thing was resilience. Having to really come to terms and get to love that word in the past 10 years. And that comes in different forms. From one, when you're working for somebody else within the NPO sector, I'll speak a bit about that. The resilience of having to convince someone to do a good thing and convincing them that this is what they want in the end. And then having to be really, I don't know, like, trying to find the right word to describe it, but basically really being persistent. Being persistent to convince people to do a good thing, whether it be large corporates, government, and other NGOs in the space. When I'm talking about the space, I'm talking about the green economy. And also having moved away from working for somebody else in the NPO space and starting my own NPO. I remember you said earlier on, and we're not creating much of muchness within the NGO itself space. And one particular reason why I started my NPO about 4 years ago was to really bridge the information gap. Because the first thing that I observed was that one of the reasons why one of the challenges why we're not getting these policies that have been built over years being implemented is because the people that need to be speaking together are not speaking together. And that's why I started my entity. And we've had some success, but we've also had several challenges in the process. Obviously, one being one you mentioned that earlier, funding. The reality is that it does take funding to unlock a lot of these projects. But I think the main challenge, I would say, is really at the end of the day building that trust, doing that. If I'm showing my cards, you're showing your cards. The two won't be mismatched. We all want the same thing, and then I would say that's really been the challenge up until now. But other than that, I believe we live in a beautiful country full of many opportunities. I think where there are challenges, for each challenge that we have in South Africa, there's an opportunity, a line of those opportunities that are waiting, and I'm really excited for the next 10 years, the next year actually, to say the least.
Why do you think we've got this culture of mistrust?
That's a good one. I think it probably goes back to pre-94, where we as South Africans and non-South Africans as maybe business, government, society, where we're still getting to terms with this being part of this new world and being part of this, I suppose, renewed world, and really, and then now to add to the fact that there's all these global challenges happening in the world, is how do we then form a team South Africa in the midst of it all? In the midst of challenges, in the midst of climate challenges, it's a lot to bear. It's a lot to bear. But it takes these conversations to unlock that. It takes having the CuppaChino clubs. It takes opening up conversations between industry and private, between schools. I like what you're doing, for instance, with the sports. I believe sport is one way we can unlock trust. We can definitely build trust in the country. I don't know if you've seen. I'm sure you've seen when we have World Cups, when we've had all these big tournaments in the country. There's almost like a uniform joy in wanting to do the right thing and being part of something great, in the country.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sport is a universal language, and I think it is utilized. It is underutilized when it comes to what we're trying to address in South Africa. And just Songo, to echo on what you mentioned regarding building the trust, I also think that it's the NPOs and NGOs and the traditional way now they see funders, and that they only want to hear the good news and they don't want to hear areas where you're actually struggling. And maybe I'm speaking to a niche group of funders out there, but there is actually funders that wants to know where you need help so that we can actually assist. And I think that also boils down to the trust that we won't just pull funding just because you're showing and you're being vulnerable to us, but we actually want to genuinely and sincerely help you or hook you up with somebody else that is able to do so that we're not functioning in silos, because the power is in collaboration and the transparency in that. So yeah, fully agree with you on that.
So do you think there's a genuine will for collaboration in this space with the private sector coming together with nonprofits?
I think that there is a gap, and like I mentioned, it's a mind shift that needs to happen within NGOs and even some in the corporate industry as well. Because I think NGOs are caught between a rock and a hard place when it comes to do I expand because that is what my funders want. They want to actually see the numbers, or do I focus on quality program or quality services? So I think it is they are caught between a rock and a hard place. And I think it's the traditional way of thinking about being a funder and being an NGO that needs to change in our fast-paced life that we are in now. And it's all about collaboration. I fully agree with that.
Viola, your thoughts with your corporate hat on?
Look, I think that there's a strong stereotype that exists around the whole NPO NGO sector. It's a sort of they are law unto themselves. They're not governed by the basic conditions of employment. They're not governed by the the Companies Act. This I think some of so some of those stereotypes are actually damaging the development industry. I mean, there's so much good work being done. So for me, it's really about how do we step up the game within the sector? How do we start getting people who start up these NGOs, who work within NGOs, to understand the importance of presenting a very professional entity to funders? And part of that professionalism is to be transparent about what some of the challenges are. I don't know, ladies, what do you find some of the stereotypes are when you go to a braai on a Saturday afternoon and you say, I'm heading up an NGO or NPO? What do people generally think? What are some of the stereotypes?
Yeah.
Well, for me, some of the stereotypes is that we are not professional, or that it's something that we do on the sideline. But our space is extremely professional. It's very hard work, and in fact, for me, there are nearly two rule books between the social sector, non-profit sector, and another one for the economic world, where we speak about collaboration. And I think this is not something that you do as a charitable act on the side. It's a professional sector, and we're highly skilled. We work very, very hard in the sector. We're not necessarily compensated, but there are different ways for compensation. For instance, I'm not sure how one measures, for instance, where different markets, they're always markets. Markets and value would create profits and all of those things. But I'm not sure how you would measure kindness when you are speaking to, yesterday was, for instance, the Day of the Elderly, Care of the Elderly. How do you measure a market that is not going to come for people who are discriminated with their age, or women, gender, whatever else is? Like, how do you measure that kind of, is it altruism, or that laughter, compassion, conversation, for instance, log frames that the corporates give us as well to fill in. The value is between the lines. It is not just filling in outputs and impacts and all of those things in a grid linear form. The way with the social sector works is that we create value between the lines, true value, and create. So for me, it's about creating the best world to live in, and I'm, I completely believe in the model of collaboration and partnerships, and I believe that's the way to grow our country.
Jill, from your perspective as a young person, I know that a lot of things that have changed is that, I think the previous generation looked for job security, and we, wanted to sort of stay in this job, and you wanted to work for a big brand, It's one of those things. But I'm finding that the younger generation are saying we want to work at a place where we can express our passion, where there's a cause, where there's purpose. And so a lot of the highly skilled young people are starting to look towards this NGO, NPO social sector to contribute. How are you finding it when you discuss with your friends that you work for this amazing organization?
I think to a huge extent, people see it as, like Titania mentioned, that's something that you're doing on the side, and that the NGO space in itself is not taken serious. It's not something that people value. And I think a lot of it has to do with the research that is out there regarding NGOs, especially in the sporting sector. And it is because we focus so much on the life skills element and the essential skills that we are communicating to young people out there, and not necessarily the accreditation or things that they can actually put to work, but it's more about, developing the person as a whole. So it is difficult to communicate to them what we do. But I always say, if you want to know what I'm doing, come out there, get your hands busy, get stuck in, and then you actually get to see what the work is about, because you just can't comprehend in words. Ask them the real questions. And if you're not getting the answer that you want, that is awesome feedback to the program managers, because so often, they just assume that they're making changes, but it's just their own recollection of what they're doing and how that actually implicates on the child's life. So that is awesome feedback. And I wish that more NGOs.
No, absolutely. And I think it's my response is probably linked to Jill's point as well. It's the impact. It's knowing that my cause is linked to an impact. And then that could also be a big point of reflection for us when we say going forward. When we're saying funding is a challenge, maybe funding is not the challenge. Maybe how we trying to access the funding is the challenge. Should we not be showing more of the impact that we're causing society to access our stakeholders? So I'd really say it's knowing that. It's the impact, knowing that we're an impact-driven organization, knowing that despite the 10 no's that you'll get, you'll definitely get maybe the 11th response will be a yes, and that I can definitely attest to. It's been the case, it has been the story in our case. So knowing that you have an impact and a strong impact on society, that's what keeps me going, Viola.
Okay. Cool.
Also, just on Songo's point, I believe that there's nothing more attractive than an NGO that stick to its mission statement that they came up. This is the reason why we're doing what we're doing, and that's the impact that we want to create in our community, in South Africa, in the world as a whole. And it's really not nice to know that people would mission drift just to access funding. I think that's the worst. So again, like you mentioned, Songo, if the 11th or even the 30th proposal that you send in is the one that gets you the tick, but it's aligned with what you plan to achieve with your NGO, that's the one that you should have been going with in the first place. So big up to that.
Yeah.
So you're saying stay in your lane, persevere.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
But also change tactics when you must. It's like you shouldn't necessarily change your principles to get where you want to, but perhaps maybe changing tactics along the way. Maybe it's how I'm positioning this thing. Maybe that's what needs to change, but not the ideal and the mission, like you said.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
For me, it is a review as well. A review of, like, sometimes we are so set on our outputs, and I come back to that log frame again. And sometimes we must review what those outputs are. And with the mission drift, just come back again and maybe just relook at that. Songo, on your conversation around impact as well. Me and Viola, on the bad days, when it's just all getting to you. For me, it's around the agility and the courage, the perseverance, and the fortitude to just to get out of the office, to go into the communities, to go and have conversations. So, like when we are reporting against impact as well, I think when you don't have those conversations with people who determine your strategy on the ground, where you can actually see how local, state, or national policies play out on the ground, then the impact that you are going to report at could be so much deeper. It could be richer. Globally we speak about rich data and big data. For me, it is my heart is about the rich data. It is also about the data. The capacity to mine data, to invest in data development, because we have to. The story with numbers is very, very important as well. That's what your funders want to see. But and maybe funders should be looking at operations costs or costs, so that the skill set to collect data is also part of it, because we find that we've been around for many years, and still organizations cannot tell you what the impact is, because they haven't developed that skill set to collect data. So, but when you get out of the office and you go into your communities and you have those conversations, the value that brings is just insurmountable. It is.
I think
that's me on a bad day.
Yeah, I think the data issue is a very important issue, because it takes, it's still driven by the passion, but it takes it off this anecdotal platform, where it's just, we're doing this because it makes us feel good, to we're doing this because this is the level of impact it has. And I wanted to just ask you, ladies, what does a successful woman in the NGO sector look like? What is she, what is her makeup? Because all three of you are incredibly successful. What is her makeup? What does she look like? Go for it, Songo.
And I believe I've become like a bit of a reflection of my own team, sort of my small team here that I work with, what do you mean physically? Because I hope you're not being physically.
No. In terms of her character, blonde, and I'm talking about her character. What does her character look like?
Yeah, I mean, it speaks to those elements of resilience, of staying power, knowing to stay in the game, knowing not to ever lose face, despite the many challenges, and in some cases, as we call in South Africa, brown envelopes that often get your way across a boardroom meeting, and really being authentic. I think people respond to authenticity more than anything. And if they're not buying what you're selling, if you're not buying what you're selling, how do you expect somebody else to buy it? So I'll say that.
Yeah. Titania, what does she look like to you in terms of character?
In terms of character, Viola, I think that there are leadership qualities that are essential for and modern professionals as well, to make a mark. And for me, that is effective communications, effective leaders. We are able to adjust. We are agile. We are able to adjust the communications. We work with different stakeholders. But for me, always, people are not stakeholders. People are people. But the communication strategies that we implement, they differ. The ability to be agile in that kind of market segment is a quality that is critical, and also to be an inspiration and a motivator as well. To engage people for furthering the cause of your organization, to have an eye on the goal, to have the courage to ask the difficult questions as well. For me, those are some of the stuff. and to see that you yourself are inspired, you yourself are encouraged, and I think that's the aspect of being an authentic person, no matter which organization you work with.
Yeah.
What are your family values as well? What are you living your brand? Are you living your truth? And I hope that we all live to speak our truth, to be the brand that we are. We've made a choice to be the greatest person that we could be. And I hope
Tanya,
that motivates your team.
Yeah,
that's a very important thing that you mentioned there, because people forget, in the world in the society that we live in now, with social media having become what it is, you cannot, the one thing that people look out for is authenticity. So you can't say one thing when you've got your business hat on or your NPO hat on, and when people meet you in other circumstances, you've got, your life can't be contrary. You've got to literally live your passion, because people are going to call you out on that. You cannot have double standards.
Absolutely. For me, for instance, my work is synonymous with who I am. There is no clean cut double carriage lane where it is a work and a life balance. We have to choose it. And for me, that's an integrated choice. That I am the brand that I am at home, as well as in the work that I do. And the relationships that I have been able to cultivate and to maintain, I think it's based on that kind of integrity as well. Yeah,
that's awesome. Jill, in terms
Yes.
of from all these women that you get to meet all the time, I know you said you're still new in the game. What are some of the characteristics that stand out for you in terms of women giving leadership in the sector?
Well, I don't think there's much to add after the conversation that we just had now. But I couldn't agree with you more. You're at the end of the day, we all are personal brands, right? So what you put out there on social media, or even how other people perceive you, it should speak to what your mission is within your organization as well as in your life. Other than that, it's just to live with tenacity. Also to surround yourself with a team that is fighting towards your goal, and not necessarily pulling in different directions, and to just be an authentic leader and to be a democratic leader, to lead within your team, and also just to inspire and urge on creativity within your team members. Because I feel like so often we are just instructed to do something a certain way, and that kills off the people within your team, and even other team members, their creativity, because it's just one-dimensional on how our managers and directors want it done. So I think just creating that safe space where people can, if they see an opportunity and how it can work better, that we are approachable in the sense that we are leading from within the team and also working to each other's strengths. So, yeah.
That's
Wonderful. I just want to say a warm hello to Malini, who is joining us in the comments, and also a comment from Hawa. She's saying she's basically sort of cementing what you ladies have said. She says it's keeping it real and having perseverance to see things through.
Yeah. So just, there's so many people that so many of our young people are sitting back and saying, what is it that I want to do, and how do I contribute to Team South Africa? Do I get to play in the front lines? Am I part of the defense? Where do I play? What would your advice be to them? I mean, if they were going to join the sector, if they're making a decision to join the sector, to join a corporate, what would your advice be to them in terms of joining the development industry?
I think for me, it's about understanding what the act of citizenry is about. But more than that, it is the social responsibility as a duty. It's part of your value system. It's part of your inner principles, to perform, to maintain a balance between who you are, develop your leadership, contribute to the ecosystems around you. You don't have to be in a senior position or a high position to be a leader. You are a leader wherever you are, and that to be courageous enough to say, can I have a conversation with you? Just reach out. And I'm loving young people today, who are courageous like that. In fact, this afternoon I will be having a conversation with a young leader working in peace building, and I'm thrilled that he's reached out to me. You know what I'm saying? So we're going to have a coffee later, and we're going to be talking about some of the stuff that I hope that we can share value on. But like I said, be motivational, be inspirational. Share. This thing around mistrust and toxic environments is just so unhealthy. There is so much to do, and so much of our own personal qualities that we can bring to the table. And I hope that we can work in a world that is kinder and more generous of ourselves. That it's not just a tick box where everything is a tick box because there's an imbalance of power between the funder and the community. So, and also I think that we've kind of lost the north-south kind of game between who's the funder and where is the opportunity for making the difference. Where I think to develop your instinct and your intuition to identify opportunities and to make the best use of your skill set. I think that's been a growth aspect for my next level of development in the work that I do, and as myself in a world that's transforming. To just listen to yourself again, because those solutions can come from within you. The dependency to be very desperate because there is a job market that is not accessible to young people. I think that we need to hold them, that we need to encourage them, we need to motivate them, we need to share our hearts, we need to share our brains, we need to understand where they're at, we need to coach and mentor. And I'm loving that space at the moment.
Songo, advice?
I couldn't have said that better myself. But I'm loving, obviously, seeing what's happening around the world. We're having young leaders standing up to their leaders. One I can mention is Greta Thunberg from Sweden, who's, I think, traveled from her country to the States, United States of America, on boat, just to showcase and to actually say, this is who we are as young people. The targets that you've set for ourselves, for the world, they're not enough. We want better. We deserve a better world. And it's really encouraging for me to see those young people, because it means that I'm doing the right thing. I'm definitely in the right space. All I have to do is just continue. And like you said, just inspire and just coach and just mentor. They will do everything else.
They're
excited. They're full of energy.
They will innovate. They will bring the creativity in the organization. They're the ones who are going to come up with the solution. Just give them a platform.
Jill, advice?
Just from my side in the space that I'm working in, especially with On the Yes program, you find that a lot of young people are in a situation where they're not sure where they're going, and they're at the age of between 18 and 24. So we do find that a lot of them are caught in dogma, which is my parents want me to do this, but it's not really where my passion lies. And I know that sometimes it's a cultural thing that we don't really do reflection or even take our best interest at heart. It's all about supporting the family and making sure that, my parents saw me through 12 years of school, so now I kind of need to pay it back. And it's, again, the traditional way of thinking when it comes to people that influence our lives and what we do. So I would say, firstly, just take some time to figure out what exactly it is that you want, and then find the correct NGO or even corporate world that you feel would be able to get you there. And like Songo mentioned regarding mentorships, I believe that you should have a mentor within every area of your life. And again, just feel free to just approach people and just ask them, the type of questions that you need to make informed decisions about your life. And so often we don't do that when it comes to, I'm just doing it because it's what's best for me. We always think about the next person and, tomorrow, and I need to save for that. But young people really need to start investing in themselves. And I can't say this enough. We've gotten to a place where sometimes we feel entitled because of our history in our country, but we also need to be bold and take that step of faith by just investing in ourselves. And by being in the right environment, you will make things happen for yourself, again, by just being your authentic and driven and creative self, because we have the power, but it's almost like we're waiting for the opportunity to come knocking on our door. So I would say just take some time to find out exactly who you are and the type of legacy that you want to leave behind. That's also something that I think it's worth a thought when it comes to young people. And the sad part is that we only get to those type of questions when we're in our 40s or 50s, when our best years are behind us. So
yeah, but I also think, Jill, it's about being an active mentee. You know, we talk a lot about the mentor and so on, but I think be an active mentee. You know, say to your mentor, open your networks for me. And I think that is an absolutely critical thing for any mentor to do. Look, you've come through the ranks, you've developed a network, an impressive and extensive network in your area of expertise. Open those networks to younger people. Phone a buddy and say, listen, there's somebody who's interested in understanding more about community work. I need you to speak to her for a few minutes, and this is her phone number, etc. I think that sort of opening networks to younger people is essential for us as mentors. It's absolutely.
And also just for the younger people to also be in a space where you acknowledge your limitations, because you don't have all the experience, but to know that you're also a student in this, and like you mentioned, to be an active mentee. So even with On the Yes program, we tell them that we can only assist you this far. The next you have to meet us halfway in order for you to reach your goal. So I fully agree with that some accountability needs to be placed on the mentee to make things happen for themselves and to have those powerful conversations. Because even though you open your network to me, the rest is up to me as the mentee. And that is the space that I would either have to make it or break it. So again, just to have active young people, and also the mentors that is open and willing to share their experiences with us. Because I do think that is a gap when it comes to people with experience versus the younger people that needs to fall into those roles, that there's not those conversations happening.
Yay, CuppaChino Club.
Do you think it's we still lack the ability to have the conversations? Is it a skill set that needs to come from schools? Is it a skill set that needs to be worked on?
I think it is within the school as well as the households, because I think it stems all the way back to our cultural upbringing. When how to approach an older person, do I look you in the eye or do I look down? There's certain things that I can ask you and some things that are not appropriate, but that is from a cultural background. But unfortunately, those are barriers that could prevent you from reaching your goal. So I agree with you, it is within the schooling system, but I also think a lot of it is dependent on how you were raised and also, the space that you are in now versus to where you want to see yourself going.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I like that, because the old belief that children should be seen and not heard.
Exactly.
That children must be seen and heard.
Exactly.
They have a voice. They're going to be our future leaders. They have a great voice.
Yeah.
I think one of them are leaders.
Yeah, some of them are.
Yeah,
in one of the conversations we had, I think it was a roundtable discussion around leadership, women in leadership. One of the things we were saying is that the role for women in leadership is also evolving. A lot of us were sort of the only one at the dinner party. We were the only woman in the boardroom, and we were the only woman, on the executive team. And so we were busy proving ourselves because we represented a whole gender, and we were busy actively proving ourselves and so on. And I think one of the good things that came out of that conversation, especially for me, what I learned out of that conversation was that our role is evolving. And as much as we are still, sort of working extra hard to prove ourselves and sort of have these very serious faces when we're doing our presentations, and, we need to be taken seriously, and, we sort of have a bit of an edge to us. I think one of the evolutions of the woman leadership is that she's actually actively looking out for the younger people in the audience. And she's making herself available to them and saying I want to be available to you. I want to be available. So the idea of whether they look you in the eye or look down, you are going to start making allowances for those traditional cultural things that before were offensive, and trying to accommodate that young person's discomfort in approaching you, so that you are able to break down those barriers very quickly and get to the work of mentoring them.
Fantastic. Ladies, we're out of time. Can we have sort of one final comment from each one of you?
Yeah, for me, there's definitely a shift happening. You know, we are evolving, we are transforming. And I'd like to say to young people as well that you are the ones we've been waiting for. We said it in our generation that we are the ones we are waiting for, and it's time to pay that forward.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yes.
Just from my side, thank you. Just from my side, I think, yes, the world is filled with opportunities. With every challenge that there is out there, there's a big opportunity that's there for the taking.
Yeah. I would just like to finish off by just encouraging young people to get involved. You know, that no matter where you are, no matter what your upbringing is, no matter what your current situation is, you were created for a purpose. You know, and whether that purpose is within the development sector or the corporate sector, you have a role to play within that. And then also just to all of the people within corporates and also possible mentors out there, that, you know, I think we undermine the importance of having somebody that you take under your wing. And I think that is really a role where we can transfer experiences and skill when it comes to young people that have a tertiary education, but then also giving them the exposure to all of your experience and your failures. And also just for young people to not fear failure. You know, there's so much more that you can learn from failing than what you can towards winning. So embrace failure, like they make us who we are, and they shape our future decisions. So go and be awesome.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much for agreeing to participate and for giving us your time today. I'm so absolutely inspired. I'm so glad that we know each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure.
Yes.
One last thing for me also is to look after yourselves. You know, self-care is so critical. I've had burnout twice. This year I've been in hospital for 2 months. So to look after your mental health is so critical. And I think women don't necessarily have that conversation. You know, that burnout's a real thing because we work so darn hard trying to prove various things, you know, trying to be confident in spaces where we really are quite exhausted. You know, so to just take care of ourselves, to take care of one another as well, you know, and to be generous about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. I want to thank the ladies who's joined us in the chat comments as well. Thank you, Hawa. Thank you, Malini. It was great having you comment as well. And so thanks everyone. We look forward to having some more awesome conversations like that. And thank you, each one of you ladies. Have a great day further.
Thank
you so much.
Thanks so much, ladies.
Thanks, Viola. Thanks, Jill. Thanks, Songo.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.